So today's topic is on outcome measurement. And as Dr. Zaxanis had mentioned, um, one of the concerns and considerations in this field that we are really hoping to contribute to is the fact that there are some actually really positive outcome measurements tools within the field of rehabilitation, as in physical rehabilitation, to which us psychologists kind of latch on in the sense that we address folks who've had physical trauma and the psychological aftermath of that, adjustment-related issues, the grieving process that goes from physical loss. But also there's a psychological trauma aspect. People are involved in a motor vehicle accident or a workers' compensation injury or something of that nature, where they could be psychologically traumatic as well. And of course, on the traumatic brain injury side is another contribution that we make. So in understanding the kind of the wide field of rehab, there are lots of outcome measurements out there. There's special measures for the hand, for example, called the DASH. There are spinal cord injury measures. There are measures for traumatic brain injury. Of course, there are all kinds of measures out there in terms of mental health. Not that we're doing a great job as mental health professionals using a lot of those tools, but certainly in research they are used. And so it's great these tools are out there, but what happens when everybody's using a different tool and trying to evaluate the outcome from the different treatment and trying to improve treatment? If you're using different measurement tools and trying to evaluate treatment and trying to compare and contrast treatment effectiveness across the board, it makes it difficult to determine what's an effect specifically that may be more characteristic and captured by certain measurement tools versus the ability to have a common metric at which point you're able to then better evaluate the relative contribution, the relative efficacy of a given measurement tool. So that's part of what this project was all about, but it's also all about how people's process in terms of rehab changes over time. So if I'm an individual that sustained a maybe significant traumatic brain injury, then from the get-go, my main concerns are likely going to be physical, because it's hard to sustain a brain injury that's substantial and not have significant physical impairments. So I might be learning to walk again, to feed myself again, or the other physical issues around mobility and motor coordination and those kinds of things. And as I begin to regain some of my physical independence, and I am now back out into the community, then I might become more aware of my cognitive issues as I'm trying to get back to my banking and trying to reprioritize my life and even cooking and grocery shopping, keeping on top of all those ADLs. So I might become aware at that point in time that I have cognitive deficits. It might become manifest that we weren't aware of before. My physical progress is improving, but my cognitive issues are just becoming aware to me. And then as one's psychological and cognitive, I should say, impairments become more evident, then what might be a common kind of experience if I am somebody who's a professional person, a student, or even a parent trying to organize a family? What might the psychological ramification be towards me as I understand the cognitive ramifications? Make sense, Marco?
Depression or anxiety.
Absolutely, depression or anxiety. So you can see, and then I might get through that wave, and then there might be another wave as I'm kind of stabilized, but now beginning to consider going back to work, which can be a challenge in and of itself. So and that could be, again, more of a physical thing, because maybe physically I'm doing well in terms of my activities of daily living, but an aspect of my work is physical. And if now I realize I can't go back to that job, it can't be accommodated, it can't be modified to suit my physical situation. Again, it could be another wave of depression, anxiety from the emotional standpoint, and same with cognitive. Maybe I've reached a point where cognitively I can manage my activities of daily living, but my work might be so demanding at such high level that the more subtle cognitive issues are going to be impactful and become barriers to rehabilitation at that point. And again, our good friend anxiety and depression, the adjustment-based issues. So you really have to have a set of measures that's not just unitary, focused on a specific issue, body part, but really is going to be able to pick up the issues over the course of time throughout the whole rehabilitation process. And I would argue that this concept, notion is true, not just with respect to physical rehab and traumatic brain injury, but even from a mental health perspective, because, and as we will discuss and as I'll show you, there are very significant cognitive ramifications to mental health conditions, and even, somewhat arguably physical ones, especially when mental health issues begin to interfere with sleep as well. You can have obviously psychomotor retardation and the like.